Good morning, everyone. Are you ready? You know what we're here for? We're here to save New York. And who's going to do that? Lee Zeldin. First, though, before he comes out, there's some people we want to introduce. We have candidates for state Supreme Court because it's not just the governor, it's all the way down that makes the difference in New York. So let's introduce Kevin Keener for state Supreme Court. We have Will Ramsire with us. For Congress, we have Steve Wells and Brandon Williams. For State Senate, we have Julie Abbott. Coming shortly. For State Assembly, we have Karen Ayub. And for Family Court, we have Jim Corral Jr. It's going to be an exciting morning. He's been busy touring around the state, and he came here to show us his support, and we're here to show him support. So let's give it up one more time for Lee Zeldin. All right, we'll now introduce Andrew Giuliani.
Okay, Jordan, New York, how you doing? Good to see you. Last time I was here was Memorial Day last year, and I have to tell you, the warmth and the love that we felt, it was certainly probably a little more warmth than Congressman Zeldin felt yesterday right there. There he is right here. I've got to tell you, so I was supposed to be up there with Congressman Zeldin yesterday, and Congressman, I want to promise you that myself, Rob, and Harry did not plan that. I just want to let you know that. I want to make sure I make that promise to you right here. But I have to tell you, that was perfect technique in how you take down an attacker. And I don't just mean from Congressman Zeldin, but also from our Lieutenant Governor, Allison Esposito. I mean, you saw that thing come right at you, grabbed the wrist right there, got him down, and immediately you have a Lieutenant Governor like Kathy Hochul, like Allison Esposito, who, by the way, worked faster in doing that than anything Kathy Hochul has done as Lieutenant Governor or Governor. I mean, if Kathy Hochul would have seen that as Lieutenant Governor, first off, it would have meant that she was campaigning for Andrew Cuomo, which meant that she probably would have let the attack happen right there. But she probably would have put a commission together, and she would have taken her time, and then a few weeks later, you would have had a result where she should have said, I should have done something. Instead, you had Congressman Zeldin taking down the attacker. You had Allison Esposito, who was right there immediately. You had the Zeldin team who came to the rescue and made sure that everybody was okay, and thankfully, everybody was unarmed. But I will tell you this, in looking at the situation, this guy, I heard, was released. Is that true? This guy is out there? Yeah. This guy immediately released, and from what I saw, he charged with sharp object, immediately going for the upper half of the next governor of the state of New York, Lee Zeldin, and said, you're done. That, to me, is attempted murder, and we're literally letting this guy out on his own recognizance immediately. It's a perfect microcosm for what is wrong with the state of New York. It's a perfect microcosm for where the last 15 and a half, 16 years of one-party rule has led this state. We need to make sure that we end the war on cops, and we need to make sure that we're actually locking up the criminals that are creating this chaos in this great state. And I can tell you this, Kathy Hochul's not going to be the one responsible to do that. Kathy Hochul's going to allow this to happen. This happened just outside of Rochester in Monroe County yesterday. Last year, Rochester had the most murders ever in recorded history. This year, they're on pace to surpass that. Right in Syracuse over here, not too far away. double the violent crime average. In New York City, we've got a district attorney who, and I said this last night to Congressman Zeldin, the only ask that I'm going to have of him once he becomes Governor-elect Zeldin is I'm going to ask him if I could be the one to deliver the pink slip personally to Alvin Bragg or any of the district attorneys that do not prosecute and execute their oath of office. I live less than a mile, actually, from his office right there. Let's say we don't get cups of coffee each day and discuss our policies on criminology. But I want to make sure, more than anything, that we understand what we are here to do, right? This is so important to make sure, and I had a couple of conversations before this press conference, this event started, about the importance of this moment in the state of New York. I have an 8-month-old daughter. I know Congressman Zeldin has 2 teenage daughters, and I think we look at this not as politicians or as a candidate or a former candidate for office, but first and foremost as fathers. And we think about what do we need to do to make sure that our state is livable for our children. And when I think and I look at my baby Grace every single day, and I think about what I need to do as a father to make sure that her life is going to be better in New York, it means over the next 3.5 months that we do everything we possibly can to make sure we give Kathy Hochul the boot come November 8th and make sure that Congressman Lee Zeldin becomes Governor-elect Lee Zeldin, and then on January 1st, 2023, becomes the 58th Governor of the state of New York. So I believe I'm now introducing Allison Esposito. Is that correct? Is Allison here on site? Or she might be taking it. And now? I tell you what, I feel very, very secure having looked at everything that's going on. I know Eric came in yesterday. I feel very secure in this crowd over here, knowing that if anybody's coming after me, I've got some pretty good backing over here. But now, I would like to introduce your next Lieutenant Governor of the state of New York, Allison Esposito.
Hello, everyone. Well, thank you so much. I want to start out this morning just by recognizing the fact that, in addition to what happened with us last evening, not too far from here in Rochester, we had 2 officers who don the uniform, who go out every day to put their lives on the line for people they have never met, engage with an assailant, and the assailant shot at them and took one of our officers' lives. So please continue to keep all law enforcement, especially those officers and those officers' families, in your hearts and prayers as we go about our day. So I want to also thank Andrew for being here. It's important, and the reason it's important, it's multifaceted, but it shows you're a true patriot. We had a primary, and it was a good primary, and there was a lot of debate, and we had some great candidates come forth because they know what's at stake. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you. Well, I almost fell before you, but I stand before you, and I tell you, I'm in the greatest state, in the greatest country in the history of the world. And the greatest country, the greatest state in the history of the world. And on November 8th, ladies and gentlemen, I tell you that freedom is on the ballot. Public safety and security are all on the ballot come November 8th. And Mr. Giuliani, you recognize that, and that's why we are a united party. Ladies and gentlemen, this isn't just a red wave. This is a common sense wave. Yes. This is Republicans, Democrats, Independents, and people who have never voted before. The silent majority is awake, and they realize that the state is in a spiraling decline. We were at an event yesterday, and an individual got on stage and attacked a sitting congressman in broad daylight with a weapon that was brass knuckles of sorts with 2 daggers protruding between his fingers. And he took a strike at a sitting congressman. Now, thankfully, Lee has a military background, and he was able, thankfully, he was able to grab the subject's arm and contain him while the rest of the cavalry arrived. And that man was able to be taken down and subdued without further incident. But it could have been very bad. And it's due to false political rhetoric and dangerous narrative coming from the left. And ladies and gentlemen, within just a mere 6 hours, this individual was released from custody after an attack on a sitting congressman. Can you imagine what regular, everyday New Yorkers, what chance they stand if something like this isn't even punished? And that is why I say I'm not a politician. I'm a cop. And I was a cop for 25 years with the New York City Police Department. I never would have left my beloved police department. Day and interact with the most violent criminals and take loaded illegal firearms off of people 2, 3, and 4 times. And those individuals were released from custody before my officers were done processing the arrest. I saw babies as young as 1 in their strollers at family barbecues, shot and killed by a stray gang bullet, shot by an individual that we knew was a prior shooter that should have been in custody, and that baby should be alive. I watched my cops go out every day with a fear in their eyes. Not just a fear of losing their life, which we all know is a part of the responsibility that police undertake, as we saw in Rochester last night, but the fear of losing their jobs and potentially their freedoms for doing the job that society needs them to do. And I looked at the seat that I was sitting in and the hat that I was wearing, and I realized I was sitting in the wrong seat and wearing the wrong hat to affect the type of change that New York State so desperately needs. Ladies and gentlemen, I was humbled when Congressman Zeldin asked me to be his running mate. As proven yesterday, he's a fighter. He's a family man, he's a congressman, he's an Army veteran, and he is the man with a clear vision on how to lead New York State back to glory. We are living in an upside-down time where criminals are labeled as victims and sometimes hailed as heroes. And then we have good people that go about their daily business, like Jose Alba in New York City, who went to work that day to provide for his family, when an individual entered his store and threw the elderly man against a wall, and he didn't know if he was going to live or die, and when he defended himself, a tragic end to a course of events that was set in motion by the actual perpetrator, not by Mr. Alba. When he defended himself, a reckless district attorney like Alvin Bragg charged him with attempted murder. It's unacceptable. And the fighter that Congressman Zeldin is, and the commitment that he has to law and order and public safety, he took that fight right to Alvin Bragg and demanded that those charges were dropped. Thankfully, because of the pressure, Alvin Bragg dropped those charges. Thankfully. New York is one of the greatest states in the country, and we are leading the way in population loss. We should be energy independent. We should be bringing jobs back to New York State. We understand in this administration that you do not relinquish your right as a parent simply by sending your children to school. We owe our children better. No matter public school, private school, charter school, homeschool, or whatever, we owe our children to be set up for success no matter where they live, what they look like, what God they pray to, or what gender they are. We owe our children better. And under this administration, parents will get it. So you need to get excited now, because it's going to take all of us. This is a game of inches. I believe that we are going to win. I believe that the silent majority is awake, but it is going to take each and every one of us to stand up on November 8th, go to the voting booth and say no more. We demand our freedoms, our personal safety, our personal accountability. We demand public safety. That is government's #1 responsibility. And when that is taken away from law enforcement and not provided by government, we have the right to self-defense. We are on the precipice of history, and we are all going to do this together. I never would have walked away from my job if I believed Congressman Zeldin's integrity was anything but beyond reproach. Integrity matters in my world. This is the man with the clear vision. This is the man that will restore New York State. On January 1st, 24 years ago, I stood in New York City and I raised my right hand. And I swore then to protect the people of the city of New York. On January 1st, with your help, I will stand next to then Governor Zeldin. And we will both again raise our right hands. Only this time to provide leadership and to vow to protect all of the people of New York State. And we will deliver back to you the New York State that you deserve. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Without further ado, thankfully I'm introducing my partner and running mate in the same condition he was yesterday when we began the rally. But if it shows you anything, it shows the heart of a lion. It shows the heart of a fighter. And if he's going to fight like that on a stage, imagine what he's going to do every day for you and I in Albany. Without further ado, your next governor of New York State, Lee Zeldin.
Allison Esposito. She's going to be a great lieutenant governor. Allison was raised in a law enforcement household. Her father was an NYPD chief. Allison was the commanding officer of the 70th Precinct in Brooklyn. If Allison chose to stay, she would have become an NYPD chief herself. Allison had to retire not to be our state's next lieutenant governor. Allison had to retire in order to be our candidate to be our state's next lieutenant governor. And Allison's all in. Thankfully, Allison's here on this tour because she was one of the key people who jumped in to that fray last night. I looked over and I saw a big pile pretty quickly, and there was Allison right in the middle of it. I would expect nothing less. She's a strong woman in many ways, with a lot of passion. Most importantly, I see this passion for the men and women she served with in law enforcement. I was raised in law enforcement myself, actually 2 law enforcement households. My parents were divorced and remarried. I spent my week inside of one law enforcement household. There was a trooper household. Spent my weekend in another law enforcement household, my father and stepmother. And what we see right now at this moment in time with this push in Albany for what are pro-criminal policies that are making our streets less safe, we need to be doing so much more to be unapologetically backing our men and women in blue and repealing cashless bail, because what we saw last night as an example, just the latest example, is that the attacker on stage was immediately released due to cashless bail, charged with a felony. You're not allowed to try to stab anybody. And here you have somebody at a political event attempting to stab a member of Congress and instantly released by New York state law. A couple of weeks ago, we were standing in front of the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's office. And while we were there focusing on the Jose Alba case, what had also just happened was that 2 Mexican cartel drug smugglers had just been released on cashless bail after they were caught with $1.2 million worth of crystal meth. Now, the argument in favor of cashless bail is that you don't want somebody to stay locked up behind bars only because they can't afford a very small amount of bail. That's the argument that gets made by activists and advocates. I would offer you that if you are a Mexican cartel drug smuggler with $1.2 million worth of crystal meth and you don't set aside enough money, that's on you. You're a bad businessman, you're a bad drug dealer, you're a bad criminal, but those people should not have been released on cashless bail. 93-year-old Connie Torrey of Syracuse was murdered by somebody released on cashless bail. These stories are all across New York. Historic crime rate increases are not just coming out of New York City. We're seeing numbers coming out of Syracuse, seeing numbers coming out of Rochester. People want to feel safe on their streets. They want life in New York to be more affordable and filled with more opportunities. They want freedom. They want a government where they feel like they're in charge of their government. They want public servants who believe that public service is about serving the public, not being served by the public. Kathy Hochul had a really bad week. The Albany Times-Union wrote a story that someone had given her, a family gave her hundreds of thousands of dollars of campaign contributions. And that company ended up receiving over $600 million of tax dollars on a no-bid contract. Now, how would Kathy Hochul have the authority to be able to go around New York State's competitive bidding rules in order to give her campaign donor this massive several $100 million contract? Well, every single month, Kathy Hochul unilaterally extends her COVID emergency powers with the power that she grants herself without seeking approval from the state legislature. And she does it every single month. So she's able to cut corners. And this isn't the only scandal. And I believe that we have an opportunity to do something really different and radical in this state. We haven't done this in a long time, but I'm telling you, trust me, this happens in a bunch of other states. See, what they do is, on a November election, they elect a governor and lieutenant governor. And then at the end of the 4-year term, I know this is going to sound crazy to all of you. We haven't experienced this in a while. At the end of the 4-year term, they're still there. We are on our 3rd lieutenant governor now in less than a year. We need to have a government that we all can be proud of again. This isn't about being Republican versus Democrat, red on blue. We have support of independents. There are disenfranchised Democrats. There are people who are hitting their breaking point because they're struggling to afford to survive in this state, because they don't feel safe in New York. They don't feel free, so they're heading elsewhere, to Florida and Texas, to the Carolinas and Tennessee. We want all New Yorkers to stay and fight with us, to work alongside us, for us to be able to successfully save our state. But in order to do that, we have a November 8th election that's coming up first. Now, we just came off of a spirited primary, and it was a 4-way race. And to Andrew Giuliani's credit, immediately after the polls closed and the results started coming in, Andrew called. We had a totally positive conversation talking about working together to save our state. I had a great conversation later that evening with Rob Astorino, and on Sunday we're doing an event together in Westchester. Statements of support came out from Andrew and from Rob and from Harry Wilson. It's important for all of us to be united, working forward together with this shared goal of succeeding in a rescue mission to save New York. Now, when you're on the campaign trail, in a way, your opponents, your adversaries. Nothing changed the fact that Andrew and I have been friends for a long time. Now, because we're running against each other, I never shared this story. But now he's here at a Zeldin Esposito Fire Hochul Unity rally, so I will tell you that one of the coolest Andrew Giuliani stories that I have. I don't know, I ran out of time at the debate. I almost got to this. So my wife and I get to the White House, and it's pouring. And my wife is wearing an outfit that she bought. This is one of the downsides of keeping family invested in the experience of being a member of Congress, is because every time my wife learns that there's a new big event coming, it ends up costing me a lot of money because she always has to get, and Julie, you appreciate this, you have to get a new outfit for the event. So she had on her new outfit. But it's boring. Andrew comes out wearing his suit for the day. And this is the beginning of the day. And Andrew brings out an umbrella. But he only had one umbrella. Andrew had a decision to make. You might ask yourself, what would you do in this moment with this decision to make? It's the start of the day. You work in the White House. What if the president calls you up, in 20 minutes and say, Andrew, I need you to come to the Oval Office right now, and you show up wearing, you're just absolutely drenched in a suit. It's not an option. Many would say. Andrew insisted. He gave my wife the umbrella. And Andrew is standing out there in the pouring rain, destroying his suit at the start of a workday. And I remember asking him, like, Andrew, what are you going to do? His mind was thinking about it. He's like, I don't know. But all he did know was that he wanted to give that umbrella to Diana. And by the way, here in this very public setting, on behalf of my wife, Diana, I got to tell you, I have a bunch of stories like that about Andrew. He's a good man. His heart is in the right place. There are many years of public service and public advocacy ahead for him, and I'm grateful for his support. This is a unity rally, and we are unified in the goal of firing Captain Hope and saving New York. So thank you again, Andrew. Maybe next event, we have a few of these today. I'll keep coming up with new stories to reveal each stuff.
Well, like you, like me, your wife is the most charming in the couple, so I have a situation, so I did it for her.
Yes, Andrew and I both married way, way up. Speaking of marrying way up, and I served with him for 4 years in the New York State Senate, my friend John DeFrancisco is here, the former state senator. John, you in favor of repealing those cashless bail laws, I bet, huh? Oh, yeah. I bet John would love to be able to, I know you're not looking to run for a 2-year term, but you'd be happy to go there back for a day to be part of making sure our streets are safe again. Put on our website, zeldinfornewyork.com/securestreets. If you go there, there are a couple dozen proposals that we believe will make life in New York safer. Right there at the top of the list for so many New Yorkers is the need to repeal cashless bail. The first thing that I will do after I'm sworn into office is to do my constitutional duty. It's not just a constitutional authority, but to do my constitutional duty. To remove a district attorney who refuses to enforce the law. If the we don't have recall elections in New York. If we have a district attorney refusing to enforce the law, the governor has the duty to remove that DA. First thing after taking the oath is notifying Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan District Attorney who refuses to enforce all different kinds of laws across the board and all other kinds of laws he treats as lesser offenses. I will let him know he's fired. Yes! Yes! Last to close, and this is something Allison mentioned. The biggest issue last night coming out of Monroe County wasn't on a stage in Fairport. When Allison and I were with the Monroe County sheriffs back in their office, they got word that 2 Rochester police officers were shot. They later would learn that one of them died. And as we take a moment going forward from here with a clear sense of purpose of what brought us here today, but an even clearer sense of purpose of what we need to do going forward between now and November 8th and beyond, regardless of your politics. It's about being New Yorkers. Thanking our men and women in law enforcement, thanking our veterans, cherishing our liberty, defending our flag, preserving freedom and making sure that we are all in to save New York. On November 8th, when you all go to sleep, I plan on seeing all of you, knowing that everybody has a big smile on their face. Everybody's feeling good, not just because they worked hard, taking nothing for granted, all in knowing the stakes, but knowing that it was successful. Seeing everything going on right now in Washington and wanting to do something about it, when you go to sleep on Tuesday, November 8th, you know that you did your part to successfully help to flip the House of Representatives, to make sure that there's a balance of power again down in Washington, D.C., and Nancy Pelosi is no longer the speaker. How's that sound? When you go to sleep on Tuesday, November 8th, you will feel good, not just because you worked as hard as you can, taking nothing for granted, but you did it successfully. To restore balance and common sense to Albany. To reverse the attacks on wallets, on safety, on freedom. To allow our families to stay here and to thrive. And to be able to tell all the people in their lives who are thinking about leaving, it's important for all of them to stay because you did it successfully. To make sure that Kathy Hochul is fired, one-party rule in Albany is ended. We will elect for the first time in decades a Republican governor here again in the state of New York. We will secure our streets. We will make sure that opportunity goes further, that your wallets are defended, that you have a government that you can be proud of again. We are going to make history on Tuesday, November 8th, and we are going to get to work to save New York. Thank you all for being here. We're happy to answer any questions from the media.
Everybody can start moving towards the candidates, please. Thank you. Is this good for the footage?
Andy, is this good?